Happy Wine Wednesday.
Cheers to you, Mira Boucher. Cheers to all of you, Carl's Wine Club members, Canadian wine lovers. This is Cave Spring Weeks. How freaking exciting is that, eh?
Very exciting because we discovered some amazing wines from Cave Spring these last few weeks and amazing value, which I love. I love when you can get a wine that you really enjoy and then you get the price point and you're like, ooh, I could buy a case of this and it won't hurt that much. So
I think that's the absolute best part of what we do. And I think we've talked about that multiple times, finding some big dogs, finding some we know what we're getting into, like these big names and like these absolute home run wines every time, like these Nota Benes, Painted Rock, Red Icon, Mount Boucherie, The Summit, like all of these ones, like every year you're going to get an absolute bomb of a wine. It's going to be a 92 points plus. You just know it. But to go out and dig into these, like this bunch of wines around the $17 to the $30 wines and finding these gems that you're not sure, like is it just Mother Nature? Is it just a representation of the vintage? Is it like what you're going to get? But when you get this, you get onto a producer like Cave Spring or just like Vineland Estate or Cave Spring or Bellaterra. Like these guys who gives you year in and year out freaking fantastic wines at a tremendous value. So that's what we're into this week. And this is really exciting. I am thrilled. I have tasted let's say probably 10, 12 wines from Cave Spring in the last year, and we have 9 available this week, and all of them are all blowing out the price point out of the water in terms of what they deliver. So yeah, really, really cool week. And on top of it, usually on Wednesday, we have someone from the winery who is joining us to chat about a little bit of the history. Unfortunately, Cave Spring are pretty busy. Some of the teams are on the plane right now, on their way to France for Vinexpo. So a big trade show happening starting early next week, but they're flying out today. So, but what we've done, we connected with Gabriel DeMarco, the winemaker, viticulturist at Cave Spring, and we pre-recorded a pretty cool interview yesterday. So we're going to have that. We're going to play that a little later on. Stay tuned because Gabriel is a freaking gem. He looks like an 18-year-old kid, first and foremost. but he's my age, I would say, probably. And he has loads of experience. He's only the second winemaker for Cave Spring. Did I say that correctly? I freaking think so. This is really cool because Cave Spring was founded in 1973. One of the oldest winery in the country. The very famous Penichetti family. So Len Penichetti and his best friend founded the winery all the way back to 1973. And Gabriel become only the second winemaker. Angelo Pavan is best friend with Len Penichetti, and together they build the winery. And Gabriel is right outside of, I'm not going to tell all of the story because Gabriel's going to tell the story himself during the interview. But what a cool interview. So stay tuned. Before we go there, I think that's one of our favorite part of the week, Mira and I, is just sitting here shooting shit and talking about wine. And how about we do that just a little bit, Mira? How's our wine week around here?
I would love that because you know what? I just walked through the door. We just got back from the dentist. I am so excited for my dentist visit next week because I think they're going to be like, have you been drinking a lot of red wine? I have not seen the dentist since we moved here, which was during COVID. And that was before we started doing varietal days where we go and taste 30 Cap Francs all at the same time and compare them. So I'm curious what the dentist is going to say about my teeth these days.
Yeah,
We were at the dentist
absolutely.
with kids, and just walked through the door. So I'm excited because I think we have something pretty unique in the glass here. This is not Cave Spring from what I can
This
tell.
is not. I just thought that before we hit some of the big dog of Cave Spring and chat about Cave Spring, I just wanted to put some. I'll let it marinate a little bit. Why should I tell you right out of the gate what is it? I know you know, and I know you really want to tell everyone, but
well, I have an idea because it reminds me of something we tasted maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah, this is what it is. It's exactly it. So Mary Nesson, a really fun winery, a good winery out of Niagara on the lake. I love what they do. They do some pretty cool stuff. And a couple of years ago, they've done a one-off Cabernet Franc co-fermented Gewürztraminer. Yeah, we had a whole show about that almost. Like we talked about it a lot, but there was a one-off, and we had some members who would keep emailing about that 2 years later, aka Ross Kovac. And can we tag him somehow on Facebook? Say, hey, get your ass and listen to that show, Ross, because that was from you. He keeps ordering that by the case. Cab Franc co-fermented Gewürztraminer. It was Mary Nesson,
and it was really enjoyable. Like we never would have thought of that combination, and it was so enjoyable.
Well, it was Mary Nesson's take on the Côte Rôtie, or on the south of the Northern Rhone, Syrah, Viognier co-fermented, right? This was their Niagara take on that, something unique, but like it was really original. They're like, how's Cab Franc Gewürztraminer? Like it's gonna, like at least like sometimes you're like, yeah, you want to be too geeky here, or you want to be a little too different, and it just freaking doesn't work. So often we see that, right? But no, it was absolutely enjoyable, like really, really, really cool. And so we reached out, but Mary Nesson sent us another, like a full 12 bottles of samples a couple months ago. Say, hey, Carl, here is some new release of what we're doing. And we're just going through the whole thing. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I know that kind of color. So, but the blend has changed. This is not Cab Franc anymore. It's Merlot co-fermented Gewürztraminer this time. So I'm excited to see the difference into the flavor profile, and we'll taste that in a few seconds. Before we get in the taste, I want you, Mira, to give it a swirl, give it a sniff. Yeah, get into it. Tell me what you think, because I want to say hi to all of our people in French, okay, before we keep going. So, à tout le monde en français, tous nos amateurs de vin canadiens francophones, de la belle province, partout au pays, on veut vous souhaiter un bon mercredi. C'est Wednesday Wine Happy Hour avec Carl's Wine Club. On est content de vous avoir avec nous autres. On veut vous dire un beau bonjour en français. Cette semaine, c'est la semaine de Cave Spring Vineyard. C'est sur le Niagara Escarpment, sur le Beamsville Bench. Un très, très beau vignoble, une belle winery. C'est un des premiers en Ontario. Ça a été commencé en 1973. Il y a des vignes de Chardonnay de 1974 plantées sur le vignoble de Cave Spring. Donc, on parle d'un bâtisseur, on parle d'un fondateur de l'histoire du vin canadien, la famille Panaccelli, avec Angelo Pavan, le duo qui a duré pendant au-dessus de 35 ans avec Cave Spring, qui en ont fait une des plus prédominantes, un des vignobles les plus prédominants du pays. Donc, on les feature cette semaine. On a 9 vins. On a 3 Chardonnay, 3 Riesling, 3 Cabernet Franc à vous offrir. Une valeur incroyable. C'est une des forces de Cave Spring, c'est qu'ils présentent des vins authentiques, des vins avec une belle minéralité, mais aussi avec un prix qui est pratiquement imbattable. Donc, on est super excités de vous présenter Cave Spring. Un beau bonjour en français à tous nos amateurs de vin francophones. Back in English, Mira. There you go. There you go. So Daryl, good evening. Leslie, good evening. We have a bunch of people also tuning in on different channel. Ross is in. There you go, Alexander. So good representation here from all over the country. Talking Cave Spring Vineyard. An exciting week. So talking exciting wines. What did you think of the Marinessence Merlot? Gewürztraminer.
Merlot Gewürz.
Merlot.
So it's really interesting because I've had enough Merlot now that when I sip this, I'm like, this is different. This is very different.
It is. Look at the color, right? So this one, I hope that I served it a little bit more chill than I did. I think this wine deserves to be served a little chill.
Well, this is the thing. It's so interesting. It's really enjoyable. So
it is really enjoyable. It is.
My take on the Mira scale. It's a yes. Yes, I would drink this. Yes, I like it. Yes, you know, you could go into several glasses, if not a bottle, if you have friends around and you're having this with like, what would I like this Marinessence Merlot Gewürz? It's like, it's lighter. So it's almost like a combination between like a red wine and a rosé or something a little bit. Like I want it with cheese for sure. I think that's what I want it with.
And that's funny because there's that little grip from the Merlot grips you. There's a bright freshness. There's a little lychee from the Gewürztraminer who comes back, it pops by right in the back palate. There's definitely that. Okay, there's bright cherry, something like really bright cherry-ish, but there's a little plummy also in the mid palate. I remember the Cap Franc had a little bit of like cocoa in it and spice at the end. You don't have that profile, but there's that same excitement, little like cherry marmalade, but really fresh. So yeah, I really.
You know the percentages?
No, I don't. Maybe if you.
I'm finding it.
Yeah. Maybe you better.
I see it on their website still. 2021 is what we have, right?
That should be. Yeah, it is. It is because 2020. No, it was 2019. I think the.
So you know what they're calling it?
No.
The Merdu.
The Merdu.
Merdu. So yeah, it doesn't. It's so funny they don't have the blend on here. So we're.
You know what? I would call personally if I have to check. If I have to guess, I would say 90-10. 90-10 or 88-12. That's my.
I think we looked this up before and we were surprised. So according to Wine Country Ontario, okay, not on the winery website, but Wine Country Ontario, it's 58 Merlot, 42 Gewürz.
What?
I know. And I think we looked this up before and we were pretty surprised.
Okay, well, that's interesting. That's why the lychee comes up pretty distinctive in the back, on the back palate. Yeah.
And the color too, like it's such a pretty, like, it reminds me of Jolly Rancher cherry color.
Yeah.
It's hard to see.
No, you know what? I would buy that. What is the price? I would say, is it like, if it's on it has to be under $30. I don't see that wine.
30.
Huh?
It is under 30.
It is under 30, yeah. Including tax. I would say like a $26 or $27.
$27.95 including tax.
Okay, so you know it's well priced. It's enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's fun.
It's a talking piece. It's unique. Like if you have friends that like
wine, it is surely different.
Merlot with Gewürztraminer. Like,
co-fermented. It's a very, very important distinction here. Because usually when you do blend, you ferment all the grape varietals separately. And after that, you blend depending on how it goes. Now, how they do that here, they throw all of these grapes, they pick the grapes, and probably, I would say, the Gewürz is still a whole bunch. It's still a whole bunch Gewürz probably. So everything goes in the same, in the press together. Press together. Juice goes all mixed up in the fermenter and gets fermented. I don't see any oak treatment in there. I believe that it's 100% stainless steel. So that's fresh, it's pure, and it's different. I enjoy that a lot. Actually.
Yeah, no, me too. It's very special. It's very nice. It does remind me of the, it was a Cab Franc Gewürz before, right?
Cab Franc Gewürz. Yeah, oh, there's definitely a similarity here. Definitely. But this is a little bit more juicy. A little bit more fruit forward than I remember with the Cab Franc. The Cab Franc had a little bit more earthiness in the profile. That cocoa, a little bit of tobacco as well. This is more on the fruit forward. That cherry marmalade, or that fresh, like the fresh red cherry, like you have on top of the Black Forest cake or something like that, and you just like pop that in your mouth. And add to that some lychee, some floral component, like lots of, actually on the nose, there's a fairly decent amount of floral component on there.
You know what? This is very much a spring wine. Like
absolutely.
Right now,
you're bang on with that. You're bang on.
Because I'm looking outside, the snow on the mountains is starting to melt, but it's not quite, we're in the Okanagan, so it's not spring yet, but it's like a few degrees out. It's perfect for this kind of weather, I feel like.
Well, okay, I know that you try to be really politically correct here with our friend in back east. I really know how you really try, but screw that. We went for a walk today, and Jesus Mother, it was 7 degrees, sunny, there's no wind. The lake looked like, it feels like, we went to look at the grass, and it's like, oh, look, there's some little green part coming out.
So we had an impromptu trip to Calgary last week, a road trip, which we decided to take the kids on. And then, of course, the kids got a stomach bug. So stomach bug with 3 kids on a road trip. Fun times. But it certainly made us realize, like, wow, how nice the weather here in the Okanagan is. No wonder the grapes like it here.
Yes, geez, I'm with you on that.
Like we went from we haven't experienced that kind of cold in Calgary now in over a year.
Oh, over 2 years.
Yeah, because it just doesn't happen out here. If it did, the vines would die. So that would suck.
Oh yeah. Well, I think remember when we got to Banff, it was minus 37 at some point, and we like to hear was yeah. Anyhow, so yes, this is a spring wine. I like the way you just described that. A blend of light red and rosé. It's really, really cool. I love it. You know what? And I will sure do the tasting notes tonight. I'm going to post it sometime in the weekend. I would say this is a 90 point, that's for sure. It's fun. I love the price point. Obviously, I would like it more if it was $23, but I will take the $27.95. It's worth it. It's different. There's nothing offensive in that wine. I think it's well made. So yeah, loving it. Cheers to that.
Cheers. Very interesting wine. So are we featuring Mary Nissen this year in the club?
We should do. We will. I think we have talked to but okay, so there's a different project also going on at Mary Nissen with Collab. So they're doing some different small artisan winemaker all together. So we're gonna have the chance to feature Fogellar that we already done last year. We had a great success with Riesling and Cab Franc with Fogellar. We'll do Fogellar and Divergence together, and they all operate out of Mary Nissen. And I believe that Mary Nissen will be sometimes early summer. That's where so our schedule is built all the way to the month of June right now. I'm keeping these guys for the back end of the summer, but Mary Nissen should be back on our lineup this year, working with Nick at Collab and the team at Mary Nissen. Always a pleasure. So yeah, that's what's coming on. soon. But also, okay, talking about Ontario, we're talking about Cave Spring. I just want to open the door just an inch to talk about in 2 weeks from now, because one of my absolute favorite one of the guy that I respect the most in the Canadian wine industry, one of the all-star winemaker of our country, Thomas Batchelder. Well, guess what, you all guys? Guess what? Yep. We're gonna feature Batchelder's wine in 2 weeks. So this is really freaking exciting. We're gonna do some Gamay, Pinots, and Chardonnay. So it is. Can I say like a kind of a dream of mine, like something like that? Like I really love what Thomas do. I really respect what it's done for the wine industry and the talent he has as a winemaker. So in 2 weeks from now, so we're going to stay in Ontario, so Cave Spring, and after that, Batchelder. That's what's coming up. And after that, for the month of March, we're coming back to BC for a couple of offers. So yeah, here we are.
So I want to say, like, because I know what's coming up in my glass next. This was the perfect palate opener for what's next, because what's next is also super unique from Cave Spring.
This is the big dog from the Cave Spring. This is the
their
most
top wine, right?
Their top wine. This is their Appassimento version. So they have a partially air dry Cab Franc. This is La Pena from the 2019 vintage, 100% Cabernet Franc. 38% of the grapes have gone through Appassimento process. So air dry grape, who shrinks the grape, gets the water out of the grapes, concentrated the flavor. This is the Amarone style. That's the Appassimento process. But this is not 100% Appassimento, so we're not at the 15.5, 16% that we can expect from Appassimento wine or Amarone. This is only just under 40% of the grapes who went through the Appassimento process. So pretty cool, pretty cool.
So here's, it's always fun to read the labels. They have some really cool little facts here on the back of this label. So La Pena, the name of this wine, that's partial Appassimento, okay? It means feather in Italian. Of course, the Cave Spring family, the Penicettis, are Italian background. And so it means feather. Alludes to migratory hawks that ride thermal updrafts along the limestone cliffs at the Cave Spring Vineyard. These breezes enable us in the Appassimento method to naturally air dry a portion of the Cab Franc grapes that produce this wine. So that's really interesting. I wish we'd ask Gabe a little bit more about that, because it sounds like they use the actual winds in the vineyard. And we've been talking about how wind is part of terroir. Hey, Carl?
Absolutely. And now that conversation started with the Similkameen Valley, right? Remember our visit at Courcelette when we went at the new vineyard? Like it took us a quad and a shotgun and some cacti spins,
tweezers in case the cacti get in your shoes and pierce your
so
feet.
When we got up there and we're like, wow, this is super windy, and Charlie Bessler at Courcelette explained to us like really digged into the terroir definition, and wind is part of the terroir. Absolutely. So in the escarpment,
it beats up the vines. In that case, for Courcelette, it beats up the grapes. So it makes sense. The grapes get a thicker skin, so it's going to taste different, right?
Absolutely.
And in this case, it sounds like they use the winds to help naturally air dry some of the grapes.
Well, if you compare to what we've seen, let's stay on the Beamsville bench here, and we had our wine of the year, #1, the Colleen, from Rennie Estate Winery, one of the top premium producer, right next door, like really, really close from the Cave Spring Vineyard. So Rennie, so what they do here, they build a drying chambers. So they keep Mother Nature out of the process anymore now, because this is 100% of their production. That's what they do. So they try to put all of the outside factor out of the equation to make sure that the drying process is consistent year in and year out. This is the representation of the vintage, of the growing season, none of the drying season. So they've built, they've patented with the Vineland Research Institute their own drying chambers. So they put the grapes in there, and it dries very consistently for just around 100 days. Now, with La Pena, what's happening is they keep Mother Nature involved in that whole process. So it's natural airflow that dries the grapes. So it's a little bit different. It's not completely a passamento, but it's the style of what they're doing here. So it's pretty interesting, and you feel it in the flavor profile, in the texture. It's not as rich as a real passamento. It's not as sweet. It's not as heavy. There's a completely different, but you can feel some concentration. Also a style of richness as well. And what I like into that, it's the spice. Oh, there's a little bit of chili pepper in there. Oh, look at that.
So that's the drying chambers over for a passamento over at Massey in Italy, which Rennie Estate, they went out to Massey's winery and learned that whole process, and they developed a different way of doing it in Niagara. So that's kind of gives you an idea of how they do it there. But yeah, it's sounding more like at Cave Spring, they're using the natural
airflow of the escarpment, really, right?
Cool, because we've heard so much about that airflow and how important it is. Like, we wouldn't have the Niagara wine industry if it wasn't for that escarpment and how it creates a different airflow coming through there, right?
Well, they built all of the sub-appellation and all of their, like, it's part of the definition, it's part of the typicity, it's part of the personality of the Niagara region, how diverse this region is in terms of what's all about, what's the escarpment. It's the major component of all Niagara, because on one side is Niagara on the lake, so the flat area where it's much warmer, and you have the escarpment, where all of these other sub-appellation on top of the escarpment, behind the escarpment, in front of the escarpment, or wherever, all represented from different type of soil and type of microclimate that you can find around the escarpment. So as the escarpment is the most influential natural component of all of the Ontario, the Niagara wine region. So yeah,
so
and
we'll hear
more
about that from Gabe, from the winemaker, in a second. To give you an idea of the escarpment, Carl and I were out in Niagara, and people keep talking about the escarpment. Do you see that the horizon there, where there's a bit of a hill in behind this picture, behind where Gabe is pictured? That's the escarpment. So when we were out in Niagara, everyone's talking about like a mountain. They even do skiing there in the winter and stuff. And we're from the Okanagan, so we're like, mountain? Like, we don't see any mountain. But yes, it's this hill type of thing. It's like a big ridge. And it has a big, big impact on grape growing in that region. It's partly why we were able to do grape growing in that region so well. So yeah, fascinating. And Gabe, the winemaker at Cave Springs, has some other cool explanations about how that all works, right?
Well, it's also, it's all about, it's the soil, the type of soil. And there's one thing I want to get into before we get to the interview with Gabe. It's the minerality of these wines. The Beamsville bench is really rich in minerality. And often now when I taste wines from these producers on the bench, I can detect that salinity. I can, like, there's a graphite minerality style of flavor profile that you get. Obviously, you have that primary fruit depending on which grape varietal that you're tasting, but that beautiful, stunning minerality in these wines, and Cave Spring is the quintessence of that. Absolutely, it's pretty much the one that I found so far to my exploration of Niagara. That's the winery that I find the most consistent minerality in their wines.
Interesting. Hey, Mike, the average wine enthusiast on YouTube. He's got a great YouTube show, Mike LaPlante. Mike, thank you so much. He just sent us this picture of the drying process, the appassimento, how they do it at Big Head Winery.
That's
So
Big
you
Head.
like
Okay, there you go.
this is Masi in Italy. This is Big Head, and so we're talking about different ways they can dry out the grapes. So Big Head does it this way. I think that's very similar how Rennie does it, with wrapping the grapes kind of, and then doing an airflow through there.
Yeah.
So thanks, Mike, for sending that picture. That's awesome. And like
Yeah,
we were saying,
I think, and Big Head is starting a new project. I think they just opened their new tasting room this year, and now I think something is cooking in Toronto. If I saw Jacob Lipinski posting something a little cryptic the other day saying coming soon Toronto, and yeah, so I'm pretty curious. Hopefully, we can have a chance to feature Big Head as well at some point this year. But another real gem from Ontario. But let's get back to Cave Spring, because there's one wine that I would like to talk about, the Rockstar wine of that pack. Okay, sorry, yes, another Chardonnay, but that CSV Chardonnay. Where is it? Where are you, bad boy? Where are you, bad boy? Right here. That's CSV Chardonnay 2020 vintage. I'll tell you one thing. In the last couple of years, we went through a lot of great Chardonnay, a lot of them. It can be let's talk about the Silva here from BC, Spearhead, like in Ontario, Batchelder, Pearl Morissette, Westcott, Vineland with their boutique. Also, there's a plethora of outstanding Chardonnay. But I have to announce plethora. Thank you.
I like the way you said it.
To announce that this one is right in line with all of the best in the country. 94 points. I have to say, and the price for $31.95. Usually, all of the name that I just gave you, well, their wines are fantastic, like they're world class, but it comes with a but. It's at least $45, right? Like the let's say the Butler's Grant Westcott, we're $45 to $50 now. If it's not 55, like all of these great, fantastic wines, it comes with a price. Most of them are natural ferment, and obviously very, very specific grape selection from very specific groves, very specific vines, the best of the vintage. Here, these are from vines planted in 1974. 47 years old vines. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I took that bottle with us to Calgary to thank our host, because we had a couple of days of meetings in Calgary with amazing hosts. And we said, hey, and I know they're a fan of international wine. So I said, let's bring this. I want to see what they think. So remember their reaction, Mira?
Yeah, they were pretty impressed, I think.
Yeah, it was like, oh my God, where is that coming from? And like,
they were like, we never drink Canadian wine. This is made in Canada.
Yeah. And I look at Mira and just whispered to her, like, geez, there's a bunch of natural ferment in that wine. Like I was waiting to bet that there was natural ferment, because I'm a sucker for natural ferment. I just love that, just that project especially on the back palate, when you get to that little caramel, that comfy lemon and all that. It brings
a personality. Like, it's so.
And I detected that in that wine. And talking with Gabriel yesterday, yes, I was like, it's 100% wild ferment. But the kicker in that wine is it's half the price of all of these other big dogs. So yeah, 94 points, CSV 2020 Chardonnay, highly recommended. If you're a fan of Chard, you've been following us for a while, you know my love for Chardonnay, but this is right up there. I absolutely love that. And this is the top, the CSV, the CSV, just to give you a range of size, okay? So Cave Spring produced between 30,000 to 50,000 cases depending on the vintage. So it's a lot of wine. They're one of the biggest producers, but they produce
Like
all premium.
10 times the size of the average BC winery.
So yeah, and you go to the entry level, to the estate Chardonnay, they produce like 1,300 cases of the estate Chardonnay. Oh, by the way, I gave it a 91 points. Great, nice, easy drinking, a hint of oak, like beautiful minerality, $21, fantastic. And if you go to Riesling or the Cap Franc Dolomites, like these are like 1,200 cases production per SKU. Well, here, we're talking about 250 cases. So when we're talking the cream of the crop, that's what we're talking about. So yeah.
It's really good stuff. And I totally agree with you, like right up there with some of those wines that are sometimes double or more. So.
Oh, and before, let's talk about scores a little bit before we get to the interview, because I rated all of these wines. All of them were 90 points or plus, all the way to 94. A couple 92s. The Dolomite Cabs 92 plus, 92 for the regular Cab, Cab Franc, 1995. This is right in line with the Vineland Cab Franc, right? The new 2021. This is outstanding, incredible value. There's a Chardonnay Muscat in there as well, and the 3 Rieslings. What I wanted to mention is I'm not the only one to lose my mind on scores with Cave Spring, because I was looking at Wine Aligned, who have rated pretty much all of these wines. Well, they gave the CSV Chardonnay 93 points. They gave the CSV Rieslings 93 points as well, just like my score. Look at the Wine Anorak, who's the publication from Jamie Good, Doctor in Wines from the UK. He came over in Canada, I think it was late last year, and he stopped at Cave Spring. He rated their Chardonnay Muscat 92 points. He gave 94 points to, I believe it's the regular Cab Franc. Anyway, all of these wines were rated 92 to 94 points from these guys as well. Natalie McLean gave a 92 points. So everyone who tasted these wines completely agreed with me that they're all really highly rated wines. So yeah, this is not me trying to sell wine. This is me really appreciating the high quality of Cave Spring Vineyard combined with the outstanding value of all of these SKUs. So yeah.
Yeah, really great value. Amazing. Should we
also the pinpoint representation of the terroir of where they're located. They're not generic flavor profile. Even if there's a larger production, there's a pinpoint, precise, sub-appellation terroir typicity in every of these bottles, every single one of them.
Amazing stuff. Really, really great find. Really glad we got to finally experience this, because Cave Spring is just like, it's one of the founders of Canadian wine, right? Like they've been around since the very early days of the industry. So, and their winemakers, their first founding winemaker, probably the longest serving winemaker continuously in Canada, right?
Yep. Angelo Pavan.
Yeah. And now we'll meet their new winemaker, second winemaker ever for Cave Spring. So let's meet Gabe. Should we introduce Gabe?
Just before, it's the craziest, amazing story that Angelo took Gabe under his wing right out of school. And 13 years later, one of the winery with the most rich, the richest history in our industry, gave all the reign to that student who came out of school and started to work under Angelo, and now he's running the whole show in the vineyard and in the crush pad. So this is a big fact. I love Gabriel DeMarco. I love his passion. I love his authenticity. So let's listen to him, okay?
Yeah.
Cheers. So there you go, Canadian wine lovers. I'm sitting here with Gabriel, Gabriel winemaker at Cave Spring Vineyard, located on the Beamsville Bench in Niagara. Gabe, how's it going?
It's going very well. Thanks, Carl. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I can't complain. This week is a really cool week because I've been so intrigued by the background of Cave Spring, by the rich history behind Cave Spring label. First and foremost, I'm a big Chardonnay lover. Personally, Chardonnay has been like filled my passion with a wine for 25 years. So in my quest of finding all the best Chardonnays in the country, I came across Cave Spring multiple times, but now I feel like I have the privilege to talk with the people behind, inside the bottle, and know more about the rich history of the family. So great. It's great to have you on, Gabe. How long have you been with the vineyard yourself?
Oh, well, thank you for having us as well. Because your passion excites me because we are all geeks here and passionate. I've been with Cave Spring for 13 years. This is my 13th year. And attracted, just like you, to the story and the history and the origin of Cave Spring. One thing that people may not know is the brand is built around a place. Cave Spring is an actual place. It is the name of the vineyard and the site from which the grapes for our wine are grown, harvested. And I was drawn to that place. And the story behind that place is quite romantic. Len Penichetti and his father had some vineyard holdings on the west side of Niagara, just heading towards kind of what would be, towards the Beamsville Bench, but 20 kilometers from there. And Len learned about the special nature of the escarpment and the lake, and wanted to find a place where that relationship, that moderating relationship, was most exaggerated, which created the most protection from climatic variables. And so his father and himself, they rented a plane, they flew over the peninsula, they did scouting and research and identified Cave Spring as a special place, which it is. And one of the reasons that he was so attracted to Cave Spring is he wanted to build a brand around a place, not just around the family name. And that is as an enthusiast as well, I was equally drawn to that as the story. What is this mysterious place situated at the base of the escarpment wall, with mineral caves behind it, spring water behind it, with a gentle slope to the lake? You stand at the base of the vineyard, you can see all of the beautiful southwest corner of Lake Ontario, the Toronto city line. It's a beautiful place. And so the family started with 14 acres on that site. And over the last 40 years have organically grown it to 130 contiguous acres across Cave Spring. Wow. Then there's now 20 acres on the other side of the ravine. Going west on Cave Spring, we run into Crory Road. There's a ravine, and then we have 20 acres on Crory Road. And then going east, we run into Malabar. They're our direct neighbor and good friends, passionate wine growers. And then on the other side of Malabar, there's 10 more acres. And so we're 160 acres, on the Beamsville Bench, but 130 contiguous at Cave Spring. And we source over 90% of the fruit we use for all of our wine from there. And so we were just passionate about that site. And as a wine enthusiast, that story, that organic story, it wasn't like come to Niagara and buy up a bunch of land. It's come to Niagara, or being from Niagara, buying a small piece of that story of Cave Spring and slowly growing it and having the neighbors recognize that effort, that authenticity, and approach them to kind of purchase their land as they retire. And it becomes this single vineyard holding. And so being part of that story is an honor for me, something I always pinch myself about, so.
Definitely. And like having the privilege to play with the fruits of that land must be something pretty, and on a yearly basis with a different crop every year. When I taste the wine, Gabe, it's like there's something unique with that site. There's a minerality into these each and every varietals. It's really, really pinpoint specific. That's what you have to work with.
I know, it's an honor. You think of winemaking, and if you're lucky as a winemaker or a grape grower, you have 20 harvests if you're lucky, because life is long and short, and you have adventures, and you kind of find your place, and you commit to winemaking and get to be a winemaker. And if you're lucky, you do it 20 times. And to do it from a single place every year, and that terroir you talk about, that salinity, that tension, that focus, that acidity, that is terroir. We don't put those things in the wine, and it shows in the Riesling, it shows in the Chardonnay, the Cab Franc, the Pinots. It's omnipresent, and it's, like you said, it's a unique attribute to the site. And to work with it every year, to have the same vineyard sites to work with every year, you start to fine tune the way in which you understand the vineyard, the way you grow the grapes, you prune them, you tie them, you tuck them, all those things. It's all about fine tuning. We're not dealing with a different vineyard site every year. We're dealing with the vineyard site every year. And so we get into it, and we've broken out the pruning. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's someone from the Pinichetti family calling, saying, "Wow, what a great show, guys!" or it's the fax machine.
That's right. It's so the nice thing about that is what we do is we take that site very seriously, and we break down that site into specific micro parcels, and the origin of the origin of the fruit has a destiny in the finished wine from pruning. So if you know the lineup, if you go on the website, we have our regional series, our Dolomite series, our estate series, and then of course CSV is the height of our portfolio. And based on vine health, vine age, vine vigor, soil, like slope, all these variables we accumulate, we prune with a specific approach, and the pruning and the management all go into one of those categories from pruning. So we like understanding the vineyard and what it gives and the profile of the finished wine, rather than trying to make the wine something it isn't. We're using the site that we know so well to blend for that style. And it's so it makes for like quite an intriguing winemaking story when origin and the way in which the grapes show as a finished product dictate the wine you make, not the other way around.
That is so true. And do you adapt throughout the growing season? Let's say, okay, now because we're talking about pruning, I'm guessing that you have started that process, right? It's early February, so now like the whole talk of the growing season, it's already started for you. So now you're pruning, and depending on what Mother Nature is going to give you in the next couple of months, are you starting to adapt your strategy, or you're just have it in a plan and it's going to go that way, or you like how's that work?
We always adapting to like the systems. We kind of all the planning, the thought process, and the analysis on like nutrient profile. We look at the health of the soils, the way in which the plants are living in those soils, taking up those nutrients, patterns. We set the whole system up to be adaptable. So at this point of the year, we're pruning. We have a kind of pruning approach that allows us to be adaptable for anything that comes. So yeah, always changing. And I always say, Mother Nature will always throw you a curveball. You don't know when it's going to come. Like at what point is it going to be the winter? Is it going to be the spring, fall, summer? Any season. It just sometimes, like last year, for example, we had this beautiful start to the season, and then everything was going, and then we had some unexpected disease pressure and some Chardonnay by the base. There's the curveball. Adapt, adjust, and so you plan to be adaptable. It's part of the gig. It's part of the fun. Really, it's what keeps the job interesting every year.
Hey, a year ago to date, almost, you were assessing probably the frost damage in Europe, because we know, like I'm looking around, like I've been talking to a lot of people in your area, it was pretty affected by the frost. And how did you guys were as affected at Niagara on the Lake? Or how was the Beamsville bench affected from the frost for the 2020 early 2022 season?
Yeah, we were fortunate. We had 60% of a crop, which is pretty good considering some of the effects in Niagara on the Lake were quite dramatic. But that's it was the worst kind of winter damage in 25 years. And we always talk about like our climate. We're a cool climate, and that refers to the length of the growing season, the transition from spring to summer, summer to fall. Those shoulder seasons are quick. That defines cool climate. Our heat units in the summer are the same as Sonoma and Napa, so it's very hot here. But the spike, right, as you guys, I'm sure you and your readers know, but our number one variable, like in California, it's forest fires and drought. In Burgundy, it's hail or frost. In Ontario, it is the winter still. Even though we have the beautiful, powerful climatic influence of the lake and the escarpment together, our variable is still the winter. And we've been fortunate to not have to face the winter we faced last year for 25 years, but unfortunately, Mother Nature landed on us.
Yeah. And now this year compared to last year, that's where I was going. I wanted to know a little bit more about your assessment of this year. I believe that the winter was a little bit more mild, or?
Yeah, it's been mild to date, and we had a nice, long, dry fall. Part of the issue actually in 2021 into 22.
That was a wet fall.
Yeah, we had a wet fall. It sets the vines, they don't acclimatize to the winter properly. And so that weather event, actually, I shouldn't speak for the whole region, but pockets in Niagara and the lake did get quite cold. But on the bench, the weather event wasn't actually that cold, but the vines didn't acclimatize to winter due to climatic conditions outside of our control. So the weather event had a greater effect than it would have if the fall was, say, a different scenario. And so this year, knock on wood, we still have another solid month of straight winter. The forecast looks good. We should hit the ground running. And we had a nice spring last year. So interesting thing about grapevines is the fruitfulness of the buds is defined in the spring of the following year. And so if the springtime is sunny and blue sky, the following year should be very fruitful because those buds are set in the spring of that year. And so we had a beautiful spring last year. So weather agreeing with us, we should have a beautiful bud break, beautiful start to the season. And it's now we're pruning. You get tingly. You get the tingly sensation going. So
yeah, that is the excitement, right?
Yeah.
Hey, how much of the Pinacchetti family are involved in the daily operation? Is it something that you run the show, you don't have anyone to worry about, or you have a team, but you also have the guys who are walking the vineyard with you once in a while, or how's that work? I mean, 100%. I'm intrigued about their role.
Yeah, well, Len, the founding is still the president of the company. I speak with Len and meet with Len almost daily. Angelo, his best friend and founding winemaker and partner, is my mentor. The crazy thing about Cave Spring is I'm only the second winemaker they've ever hired, like head winemaker they've put in the position.
So we're talking about Angelo Pavan, right?
Angelo Pavan, the man, the longest serving winemaker in the country, my mentor, is earned his stepping back in retirement and has entrusted me to continue to carry the brand into the future. And we still work together. I mean, the reason that I kind of grew into the position is our collaborative relationship is so strong. So to say that he is completely out of the picture is craziness. I hope that I hope that doesn't happen for many years. But they trust me to run the winemaking and kind of oversee the viticulture. And so Angelo comes in and I still taste the final blends with him. He likes to taste the final blends, but I've taken the stress off his plate. And Len still is the acting president of the company. So to say that what are the founding partners doing, they're very much passionately involved still. So it's like you can't. It's their baby. They grew it from 14 acres to the kind of one of the pinnacle of wine brands in the country. And they've done that with actual legitimate hard work and effort. So there's a passion there that you can't just retire away,
so you never get retired from that. Come on, you never get retired from that. You just bring it with you, I guess, right? It's too deep inside of you.
Exactly.
Hey, I think Cave Spring is one of the most recognized brand in the country. And you guys export your wines widely on the international level, or how many countries that you guys are into?
We have COVID changed things, but we're kind of getting back into it. We have representation in about 16 states in the United States of America, of course, and we do sell into Europe. We have 6 EU countries, and we sell into Asia as well, a little bit into Japan, and then into China as well, but not that market hasn't fully recovered since COVID, and we have sold into South America a couple times, but a majority of what we make and grow is Ontario, and then in Quebec we sell a lot of wine into Quebec. And then, of course, across the country. But even all those export markets being said, 90% is in Ontario.
Wow.
So it's really, we're kind of strategically exporting a few of our signature wines. The CSV Riesling will go maybe overseas a little bit, a couple Cab Francs, but mostly domestic.
Oh, that's cool. And you know what? I've seen a lot of orders from BC and Alberta since we started the week. So I'm so excited to bring that brand all the way to Western Canada. You know what's funny? Like at the beginning when we started Carl's Wine Club, people from Ontario and Quebec were so excited to have BC wine coming their way. And now things are shifting more and more. I get so many BC people.
Cool.
Now we're really starting to click like, geez, these guys out there are making some pretty cool stuff too.
I love it. I love that whole energy, because it's like from the beginning I've said, it's not a competition.
No, it's not.
These unique zones, and they create unique signature wines of the varieties we grow. Like, let's share that. Let's share that conversation.
Hey,
absolutely. I love it. I love what you're doing.
I'll tell you one thing, like a Cab Franc from the Naramata bench and a Cab Franc from the Beamsville bench, it's the same grape, but so drastically different in terms of flavor profile.
Different. Absolutely. I know.
Yeah.
I'd love to have them side by side on a table.
I'm working on that, Gabe. I'm working on that. I want to take on a little tour in eastern of the province, best of BC. I'm taking it with me. And I think you just mentioned not a competition. I want to show people how our product are complementary. And I don't want to make it a battle. I want to make it a unit all together.
Yeah,
and we're working on that right now, actually.
Oh, that's great, Carl. That's amazing. Because it's a conversation about understanding the unique terroirs and meso and microclimates of our country, getting that information out there. These zones exist that people need to know and explore and advocate to protect these zones. We need, they're special places, and they create these beautiful products, and not just wine grapes. Peaches, plums, nectarines. They're really breadbasket growing zones with unique climates, and we should really understand them as a population. So
that's the mission of what we're doing, and I feel like talking to you, and like it's just like getting me more and more excited. Hey, let's get to the wine. Let's get to the wine, because I've tasted some outstanding thing. Okay, one thing that we noticed first and foremost, it's the value proposition. Okay. For me, and then I can tell about the Cab Franc, the Dolomite Cab Franc for $27, absolutely blow the value out of the water. And on the other hand, you get to the Estate Chardonnay at $19.95. You're like, holy moly! So my question to you, is it a challenge for you to keep that value proposition every year in and year out? Because it's probably it's one of your biggest challenges.
One of it's a mature company. Vineyards, we've built the brand organically, and so because of those attributes, we can do, over 90% estate fruit. Those wines you talk about, 100% estate fruit, 100% wild ferment, no additions, sulfur to bottle, and the price is still there. It's this whole story that is so intriguing. That brings a Cave Spring to that next level. When it drew me to the business as a geek, I just wanted to prune the original Riesling block, and once I did that, I stayed. And so to answer, it's part of the DNA, and we really work hard to keep that value proposition there, while always over delivering. There's always economy in that with inflation, but we still, even when we were faced with those tough decisions, we try to do so with the understanding that we really want to keep some value in the product.
Hey, okay, let's stay in the wine here. The Dolomite series. I want to know a little bit more the origin of why you called it, because obviously, like I tasted the Riesling and the Cab Franc, both have a burst of minerality.
Yeah.
So where's that categorization of the Dolomite series coming from? Is it a little bit more about the soil that you wanted to refer on, or where's that coming from?
Yeah, so this is to tip my cap to Tom. So Len's brother, who is the acting managing marketer of the company. So you see that dynamic, like, so Len's president, his brother is marketing, his best friend's winemaker. I'm with the one, and Andrew's still haven't got used to it. No, even though it's been a few years, the notion of being trusted by Andrew, he's my winemaking hero. So, that is named after the cap of the escarpment. So the reason we have a wine region, the escarpment and the lake, southwest corner of Lake Ontario, 97% of cold fronts hit that lake, warm up like a bath, just like if you think of the Mediterranean or the Adriatic affecting the climate, the wine regions of those zones. Same thing on a smaller scale. But the reason we have that escarpment is erosion. The cap of the escarpment is dolomitic limestone. It erodes at a different rate than sandstone, limestone. Shale, times in a couple of 100 million years of glaciation, continental drifting, and you have an elevation change and an erosion point, which is where we grow the grapes. So we named the wine, that series of wines, after the cap of the escarpment, which makes the region possible.
There you go.
And so that is, and the dolomitic limestone, but the Dolomite series for us represents kind of the entry point into the exploration of vineyards at CSV, kind of our best holdings. We start to look at like what the different sites do to the wines, and we start to explore specific vineyard sites at CSV at the Dolomite series. And of course, you go to the estate level and it's smaller, and you go to CSV, and they're looking at micro parcels at that point. So it's an exploration of the CSV site, and the tipping our cap to the cap of the escarpment that makes the whole thing possible. So
that's really cool. Really cool. Okay, let's go to the CSV series, because
yes.
I've tasted 1,200 wines, Canadian wines last year. we do that. Yeah, around 1,200. So, and I gave 94 points plus to a handful of these wines. And I believe that Chardonnay is one of the things that we do best in our country. But from you guys, I gave the CSV Chardonnay 2020 vintage 94 points. It's my assessment. I believe that this wine can go toe to toe with some of the top Chardonnay produced in this country. And it's one of the, it's right there with the top that I've tasted last year. And at $32. Not at that point, I'm like, geez, okay, this is awesome. I'm a big fan of Thomas Batchelder. I love what Thomas do, how he extract the expression of certain parcel of land. I love what Casey does at Westcott. I love with the Butler's Grand Chard, one of my favorite chard in the country. There's some to me really like highlight Chardonnay in my repertoire, but they're $60, $55, $60, and it's a fair point for Père Maurissat, like the Cuvée 19e, top-notch chard. Yours came right up at the same level to these wines, and that after price, I'm like, geez, moly, how does he do that?
Well, we do it because that Chardonnay is near and dear, so there's no. Thank you, those colleagues. I love those guys. Everyone you mentioned, they're such amazing winemakers and advocates for the region. But just the price point is, again, it's built into the brand for years, and that Chardonnay came from 7 rows of 47-year-old Chardonnay vines, and so there's old gnarly trunks, and we bring it in whole cluster, cold settle the juice, and then ferment naturally in barrel. That ferment in the 2020 specifically fermented for 20 months. I know, it's just like you get that crazy, it walks the edge, right? It has that edge of it. It's like, is there a little bit of, is it edgy? Oh no, it's clean. You know, it's a beautiful balance there. And that was it. So ferments for 20 months, and then a little sulfur to finish, and that's it. And then bottle. So, and no new oak in the wine. We find we're not against new oak. I don't want to speak against new oak, but to find in our terroir that salinity, that focus, that tension, it just
you don't want to hide that, right?
Yeah, we don't want to hide that. You know, we find that new oak takes away from this. We'll use strategically maybe second or third fill periodically, but no new oak, and so that I'm so glad you like that wine. It was yeah. So every year the CSV comes from those 7 rows of at Shoemaker Vineyard, which is all the way east in the farm. 47-year-old vines, gnarly, twisty, turny Chardonnay vines, super low vigor, and we just craft it. We craft it like that, like no ads, no takeaways, and just a little sulfur to finish. That's it.
I'm planning to be in the area in the spring. Gabe, I would love to have a walk. Have a walk there and see the Shoemaker place. Like I would love to have a walk with you there.
You need to come, please. I'd love to have you.
That would be great. Hey, Gabe, thanks for being so generous with your time. I know that you're busy, and I really, really appreciate that. And you know what? Like I said, we're planning to be in the area in the spring. Hopefully, we can make it, and we'll spend more time together. We might do a little bit of a barrel tasting for the future, thing. And we'll bring the camera, and we'll do something pretty cool for the members. How about that?
Carl, you got it. Let's do it. I love it. Thank you for including us in your tastings and getting the word of Cave Spring out there.
Thank you, Gabe.
You all enjoy the wines.
Hey, say hi to the Fenicelli family, everyone at the office. We greatly appreciate partnering up with you this week, and I know our members are really excited to get their wine. So we'll be in touch very soon, Gabe. Thanks a million, okay?
Thanks, everybody. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. How was that?
It was super interesting. Thank you. That's super cool.
Yeah, that was great stuff. Sometimes that you're connecting with someone, and sometimes it's harder, right? Personality kind of doesn't match, or I don't know, it's more the rocky interview. We went through some rocky interviews. This one was just so easy. I feel like this guy can be my buddy. That's why I'm really excited to go to our next trip to Niagara. There's absolutely a no-brainer of a stop at Cave Spring. I want to see that 7 rows of vines in the Shoemaker parcels and go see these 47 years old Chardonnay vines. We're going to do that. That's for sure. But yeah, I really enjoyed hearing Gabriel talking about his relationship with Angelo Pavan. How freaking special is that? I don't know, sometimes your life, you just walk into a situation and you're like, really? Why me? Well, I bet that's kind of what happened to him, right? He get out and just out of school, find a job at Cave Spring, get under Angelo Pavan's wings, and just grew with that, and now running with the opportunity of being the second winemaker of all time at Cave Spring. So a real cool story. I really enjoyed talking to him.
Yeah, I enjoyed that interview too. I can't wait to meet him and go to Cave Springs, hopefully with some members sometime in the spring or summer. So more info coming about that soon. We've got some big plans in terms of events happening across the country this next year, actually even 2 years. We're starting to plan things 2 years out, guys. You'd be proud of us. It will be good. Because I know we missed the boat on securing enough special wine for a club wine this last year. And we won't let that happen again. We're thinking far, far ahead. So that's going to be exciting things on the horizon.
That's cool. So there you go. So we're an hour and 15 minutes in. What do you think?
Fun stuff. I think we should go and what did you make for dinner? Popcorn chicken?
There's some spaghetti. There's some popcorn chicken.
I think that Merlot Gewurz we have open right now might go with that popcorn chicken. Really nice.
Yeah, and especially with that little house-made cheese spaghetti that I made. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Fun.
Okay, but you know
It's so
what?
great to see you guys. Thank you
I-
for stopping by one Wednesday.
Yeah, and we're gonna get to our members very soon, talking about our Ontario, the wine, the Carl's Wine Club winery of the year.
Yes.
Right, so that's
So
something that
last year, about this time, we announced our winery of the year, chosen by members. So we're going to shortlist the top
three,
three, I believe. Hey, Carl?
three of Ontario, three of BC, and we get to let the winery know. We're gonna let the members choice. The members choose which one they think it's or what should be our winery of the year for each and every side of the country, and from there we're gonna plan a party on each side of the country so we can start planning our in-person event and the whole schedule for the rest of the year. How about that?
Sounds like fun. I can't wait. It was so fun to do that last year. I mean, we had like a pig roast on a spit overlooking Skaha Lake in Caledon last year at Black Market. And all the people from Black Market then went over to our Ontario #1 winery of the year, members' choice. And we had a big party in the vineyard at Bellaterra Vineyards with our BC people and our Niagara people. It was really special.
We set the bar pretty darn high right out of the gate on the first year. So hopefully we're making the right choice this year. And so we can keep doing that at the same level on a yearly basis. But wow, I'm thinking about that last year and I get goosebumps just thinking about how special this program turned out to be, because it was not planned that way. It just turned out to be that way.
Because the people that we photobomb, the people we work with in the wine industry, I mean, these wineries that we chose as #1 members' choice last year, they're just amazing people. So as soon as we announced them, they're like, well, we want to meet each other. The BC #1 members' choice winery, Black Market people, they wanted to meet the Ontario members' choice winery at Bellaterra. So they did. They met each other. It was really, really special.
Yeah, so here we are. So that's coming your way very, very soon. So I think that's what it is for this week. So Canadian wine lovers, Carl's Wine Club members, Mira Boucher, all of you guys across the country, we want to wish you a great rest of your evening and see you next time.
Yeah, and Mike has a good question here at the end. Can a winery win 2 years in a row? I wouldn't be wholly opposed to that, but you know what? It's based on who we featured in the last year. And so, Carl, we need to talk about that.
I know.
Yeah, we need to see how we shortlist our top three, and maybe get your guys' feedback and participation in that, because I know, I mean, like Bellaterra and Black Market, they continue to be super fan favorites in Carl's Wine Club, and they probably always will. My guess is we should probably pick a different one every year, because then it's fun. We get to see different places, right?
That's it, right?
But maybe there's an alumni program, and maybe while we're there, we always visit the past winners or get them to come to the dinner with their wines, which would be super cool too. So
there you go.
Who knows? In year 20, it might become an extravaganza, Mike. Let's see how it unrolls. And we love your ideas, guys. So send them on our way. Ken, thank you so much. Great to see you. Well, have a great night, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.